Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 33rd episode of the Daily Attorney Podcast, where we talk to women attorneys all over the U.S. who are simply amazing at what they do inside and outside of the legal profession. So, our guest today is Margeaux Thomas, owner of the Thomas Law Office located in Fairfax, Virginia. Over her 15 plus year career, she has represented individuals and small businesses in complex commercial and real estate litigation and class action cases at the trial and appellate level throughout Virginia, Maryland, and DC. Margeaux specializes in commercial landlord tenant disputes, business partnership disputes, and contract disputes. In addition, in her practice, she strives to promote diversity and inclusion through legal education and has traveled throughout the country as a faculty lecturer for numerous organizations and has educated more than 4,000 attorneys on business litigation issues. That's a lot of attorneys. Margeaux is the current vice chair of the Fairfax Bar Association Continuing Legal Education Committee. She facilitates, coordinates, and communicates with attorneys to ensure that they're actively engaged and able to receive valuable CLE content. Margeaux has also written numerous legal articles. She's a contributing author to the American Bar Association's Commercial Lending Treatise. She is passionate about childhood nutrition issues and is the founder of Vegetable Forward LLC. It's an organization dedicated to educating nonprofits on how to plan, grow, and cultivate community gardens where children can learn how to grow their own food and promote positive values and nutrition. Margeaux, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no problem. So I always use this time to kind of dive in to different attorneys from different areas who are just on different walks of life, right? But recently I wanted to kind of change the format a little bit. So of course I would like to get to know you and how you went from, law student to lawyer to LLC owner, explaining to people why food and nutrition and values are just very, very important. So how did you get from one place to the next?
To being a lawyer, I mean, that's a great question. But my dad was an educator his entire life, and education was a really important part of my childhood and growing up. I was like the kid who was in summer school. Like, he didn't believe in summer vacation, so we just went to school all year round because he believed that you forget so much of what you know, and education is just something that needs to continue. So, he was definitely a large part of the decision to attend law school. Even if I wasn't going to be a lawyer, it opens up so many doors to a lot of different professions, and just, allows you to meet a lot of different people and just puts you in an environment to affect change, was his viewpoint. And, I agree with that. I thought it was a great opportunity. And I ended up liking I love law school. I like education. I'm one of those nerds.
You liked law school?
I loved law school. I loved the theoretical, conversations about what should have or could have happened, and just dissecting cases. And, sometimes when you put the real world spin of like money and client personalities, you don't have to deal with any of that in law school. It's just all,
it's all theory. And well, realistically, if you did a clinic, it would be practice too,
mm-hmm.
So it's all of the law without everything else that comes with it. What would you say was your favorite part of law school?
So I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I moved to DC to go to law school at Catholic. And that whole experience was life-changing for me. I knew I wanted to get out of Ohio, and it was a great opportunity to come to a big city. It was either New York or DC or LA, and I made it here. And I felt like that was an accomplishment in and of itself, because my parents were first generation college, first generation attending college. So to be able to come to DC for law school was unbelievable. And the people that I met, the experiences, I felt like my lens of like society was very limited until I got here. My eyes opened so much. There's so many minorities opportunity here that I didn't see every day as a kid growing up in Cleveland. Just the job market, the environment. I mean, it's just like a melting pot of different cultures and foods, and just being exposed to that as a young age. I went to law school when I was 20 because I
Okay.
graduated early. So it was a big wake up call for me. And I loved every minute of being in the city and going to school in the city and experiencing that.
So would you say that being in DC has kind of shaped the way that you practice law now and how you interact with your clients?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the city has so much to offer to so many people, and I've just learned so much through those relationships. I mean, I have so many people that have mentored me or opened a door for me or told me about an opportunity that led to other opportunities. And I feel like just being around people who are, making a change in this world and want to better their communities and are very passionate about that. And some of those people have become my best friends here. And, I'm just fortunate for the opportunity to be able to come here and
Yes.
practice law. So,
Yes, and I can definitely understand that. So how did you get to, okay, I'm doing this law thing to I'm doing this business and law thing at the same time? Because as I often voice when I'm interviewing my guests is being an attorney and being a business owner, they're two completely different things. So how did you get to that point and how did you navigate it? Because I'm sure difficulties came up, right? So how did you find yourself working through all that?
yeah, I mean, I tell people this all the time. I just always had this inner voice that was like, there's something else outside of what you're doing. And I was, for a very long time, trying to quiet that voice because I worked at a prestigious firm and I made very good money and I liked what I was doing and I liked the people that I was doing it with. Like, a lot of those people have went on to become judges and, educators and, are very accomplished. And I felt like I was soaking up so much knowledge from these people around me that were just like experts at their craft, like the best writers, some great legal argument.
Yeah,
I got to witness some very complex cases that I got to be a part of. And it was very hard for me to believe that this was not what I was meant to do
yeah,
because I liked it and I
yeah,
liked people a lot. But there was this inner voice that just kept saying, there's something else, there's something else. And, they talk about golden handcuffs, like you just get so used to the lifestyle that you live in that world because
yeah.
I made more money coming out of law school than my parents made combined throughout my
I,
life.
yeah,
So I mean, it was like a total, and I was young. I mean, I graduated from high school early and college early. So I was like 23. I think 23. I went when I was 20. I was 23 when I graduated. So it was more money I'd ever imagined
yeah,
in
yeah,
life. So, but like I said, the inner voice, and in 2013, my dad passed away, and I got pregnant with my twins, and I was on bed rest for a very long time. I had a very difficult pregnancy. I was in the hospital for a long time, and I don't know. I just guess I had more time to really like address that inner voice. And I decided to start a firm. I thought that was the next step in my career. So
and
I
make a
think we're
shift.
almost 7 years in at this
Yeah.
point. But
A lot of that happened and I'm sorry to hear about your dad's passing. I know a lot of that happened during COVID. A lot of us kind of had time to slow down. I didn't. I didn't take the time to slow down. Instead, I did what most attorneys do, found something else, worked on something else, um, you know, kind of occupy your time. Um, but a lot of attorneys that I speak with, that they had time and they said, you know what, they slowed down, they figured out, you know what, I want to make this change and I want to make that change. So unfortunately, some of us had tragedies and others, not so much. They made very different decisions. I would have to say to something you said earlier, the legal argument part of being an attorney, I think it's such a craft that only litigators really have time to hone and nurse and just change over time and evolve. And it's actually the one thing that it's not the one thing, but it's one of the many things that I love about being an attorney is being able to research and find those arguments that you know will change the judge's mind, and in some, in some cases, jury's mind about your client. So for me, I'm a legal argument nerd. So so in having your business and moving from, salaried employee to with bonuses and this wonderful package that most big law firms provide, to now business owner, how was that transition for you?
It was the most terrifying thing in the world, because I had never had no paycheck. I mean, it's just, leaving a very safe and comfortable environment and just stepping out on faith that there will be a net that catches you. I felt like I was jumping off a cliff, literally.
Yeah.
But it all seemed to work out. Like, I don't know if it was providence or what, but I didn't have a lot of clients, and I'd met with a lot of people before. I researched it to death. Like, I met with everybody I knew, like, who owned a firm, like, what's it like and how does this work, and just pick their brain about whether they were happy, whether this was the right decision, how they did it, why they did it, things like that. And a lot of people said to me, "Oh, you don't have any clients, how are you going to start your own business?" And I was like, I just have this belief that if I like burn the boat and put myself in a situation where there's no turning back, I will figure this out. I know that about myself. And it was true. I mean, I left, and I wasn't a big marketer before, but when you don't have a paycheck coming in, you learn how to tell people what to do. Yeah. And how to make money.
Yeah, you get real creative with putting yourself out there and letting people know that you exist, which is something I had issues with for a really long time. My whole thing, I still had that like employee mentality, right? That just show up, sit down, do your work, and you're fine. But when you're a business owner, you don't get the luxury of being comfortable and having certainty and so forth and so on. You just don't. So being creative, doing things out the box, I think is a must. So as far as, commercial landlord-tenant disputes, business partnership disputes, and contract disputes, why did you choose this area of law? Because it's a very focused one. It's a small pool, I think, of attorneys that practice this area of law. Why did you choose that above, let's say, family law or tax law or some other big area?
I think it chose me. I really thought I was going to be a prosecutor and then and then be a defense attorney down the road. I mean, I really love criminal law. That was like my favorite class in law school. I was a Law and Order fanatic. Like, I love the criminal justice system, and that was the way to get in court and get trial experience. And I did a externship at the Maryland State's Attorney's Office and really loved it. But, when job time came, I got an offer. I got a few offers to prosecutors' offices, and then I got an offer to a bigger firm, and it was just the right decision at that time. And that's what I was doing. I was doing commercial litigation, and I did that for many, many years before starting this firm. And when I started this firm, I wanted to make it even more of a niche practice by really drilling down on business partnership disputes, which is really my sweet spot. There are a lot of business owners that are going through what I call business divorce. They started something, and now, for a variety of reasons, many of which have to do with conflicting personalities, they want to go their separate ways, and they need to figure out how to do that. Sometimes it becomes very contentious because one of the business partners is shutting down the website, or, stealing clients and trying to set up shop across the street and compete, or, there's just run the gamut of things I've seen people do because they don't get along with their business partner anymore. So, just telling people, I already had experience in that area, but just kind of like niching down in that practice area has been very advantageous for me and my firm, because we can refer out to, trust and estates attorneys, or family law attorneys or criminal attorneys, all the other things, and they can look to us for that specific practice area.
Yeah, and I had a thought. So I guess my question is, it sounds like your areas of law is kind of like family law. It involves other different little elements where you might have to collaborate with other attorneys. Am I correct?
Absolutely. It crosses over into trust and estates, family law, IP. There's a lot of intellectual property issues. So, that's why I like it, because it's very specific, but it also encompasses so much. And there are a lot of very interesting issues. It's not like doing the same thing every single day. The business owners are all very different. They have different types of businesses that we have to learn and come up to speed so that we can be able to assist them in separating it. I mean, at the end of the day, either one of them, a partner is going to buy the other partner out, or they're going to sell it. But, there's a lot of forms that can come in, and there are a lot of tangential issues that need to be dealt with in that separation.
Yeah, I find that that's the same case in my tax controversy business, because with tax controversy, for example, I have a client now that has a very different business structure than I've ever seen, right? They're an employee, but they're not. So the IRS treats that very differently. So it involves a lot of research and figuring out, okay, someone who has a $10,000 tax debt is going to be treated very differently, and you have to go about their case a certain way versus this client who has an $800,000 tax debt, right? Very, very different logistics. So I hear you with that. So I wanted to ask you three things about business partnership disputes. Number one, what are some of the trends that you've seen, coming from big law down to private practice? Where you have your own business, what are some of the trends that you've seen among disputes?
Well, I think mediation is always, especially since COVID, has been increasing.
That
Um,
was my third question.
I
Go
beat
ahead.
you to it. But I'm a huge proponent of mediation. I give a lot of CLEs and do a lot of speaking engagements about mediation and the pros and cons of doing it. But I think that because when I was in big law, we represented bigger businesses that could afford to go to trial to try these cases, and did not mind the public, um, didn't mind it being public, the fact that they were in this dispute. I mean, they were able to deal with that. But a lot of the businesses that I represent now are 2, 3, 4 member businesses that they don't want this to be in the public. They want to continue. They want the business to continue. They don't want anybody on the outside to know that there's this internal dispute going on. They can't afford that. That will affect their bottom line. And if they can resolve this amicably through some neutral third party coming in and helping them split up what they built, it's certainly very advantageous for them to do that. So, we see a lot more mediations than we do trials. A lot of the cases are involved in mediation before we file suit. A lot of the operating agreements require mediation, and that's something that I'm seeing written into operating agreements a lot more frequently. And even drilling down to the name of the agency that's going to handle the mediation.
Wow.
So that is certainly the future of business partnership disputes, a lot of mediations.
And I think that would be better for attorneys such as yourself, who, you own your own business. And I don't think, and I say all that to say, because I don't think people understand the toll that litigation takes on you. So I think that would make it better for us attorneys, right? If there's more mediation involved, and that means that there's less fighting and people are more amicable towards each other. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I was just giving a seminar a few weeks ago about lawyer as counselor and just dealing with our clients' anxiety and how to navigate that. And I can tell you that one thing that creates the most anxiety is the cost and stress and time of litigation. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very uncertain. It takes forever. It's very expensive. I mean, people have a lot to lose and a lot to gain. So, sometimes there's no better option than to go to litigation. But, that anxiety, especially post-COVID with, everything that's going on in people's home lives outside of their business. I mean, it's just an added stressor. And if there's any way as an attorney we can help them navigate that easier and reduce their anxiety by providing this alternative to going to court, then I certainly think it's in their best interest for us to do that.
Yeah. And I think overall it helps the client too, because they're not going through this really stressful period of time for a long time. Sometimes a case can minimum a year, and it can settle in probably 2, sometimes 3. I don't think any client wants to be embroiled in a lawsuit for that long, you know? And like you said, it keeps it private. My second question was, if you were to do things different and you were to focus on, another area of law, or maybe add another area of law, which one would you choose?
That's a great question, but I wouldn't add another area of law. That's my answer. Um, I'm a true believer that, niches are the best way to go. And I try very hard to, narrow that niche as much as possible. Going forward, I mean, we have turned away a lot of things. We used to be broader and do other types of cases, but I mean, my business is getting narrower, not adding practice areas, becoming more of a specialist at what we do, and taking on more of those cases. So unfortunately, as much as I love criminal law when I started out, that's not something that's in my future.
That was a favorite class of mine, also. But then when I read a few cases, I said, I don't think I can do this. Emotionally, I don't think I'd be very good. So,
You used to do family law as well?
So here's the funny thing. My clients refuse to let me leave family law. It is the most bizarre situation I have ever seen. Every time someone asks me if I still practice family law, I cannot tell them no. I can't lie, right? I'm still practicing family law because my clients won't let me leave. And frankly, I really do love my clients, and they're just amazing people going through a really crappy time in their lives. So I just try my best to listen, be there, like you said, mediate the situation, so that way we don't have to be tied up in litigation forever. But some cases, I'm not the only attorney, so I can't dictate what happens, as you know, right? You have the best intentions, but if the other side is not willing to comply, there's nothing you can do. I had a client, I was talking to him the other day, and I said, well, we're going to file this modification, and then about 6 months, 7 months or whatever, case will close and we'll be fine. And, I explained the process. And he goes, oh, no. He said, Marie, my son is only 4 years old. You've got 14 more years with us. What? No, I do not. So that's the kind of relationship that I have with my clients. And I think it's a little bit more informal because it's family law, or it's trust and estates. I really, really like those 3 areas of law because they really affect everybody, right? At some point, somebody's going to have a kid. At some point, somebody's going to get married, divorced. You're going to need a prenup, postnup, whatever. And we all have to pay taxes. And as far as the estate portion of it, we got to leave sometime, right? We can't stay here forever. So I wanted to kind of put those 3 areas of law together, and I've done real well with it, so I cannot complain. So to answer your question, I've become more targeted with family law. And that's something that I wish I did 5-6 years ago. Be more like you and say, no, I just want to target this specific. Instead of doing child custody matters, I just want to do divorces with no children, or I just want to do child custody or SINA or whatever. So I'm learning that now, and that's the one thing I think, and I'm sure you can agree, that they don't tell us as business owners, is that there will be times where you have to make an executive decision, even though your heart says one thing, but your numbers and your stress levels or your time or your calendar is saying something completely different, so you have to make that shift.
I think it's very hard to turn away work and think about it like that, especially when you're starting out and you don't have a lot of work, which makes it even more difficult. But I think that getting to a point where you can drill down on exactly what you want, and it sounds like your practice areas are very complementary of each other.
Yes.
Which is wonderful.
Yes, they are, with the family law clients of someone, and I just taught a CLE, I think last month, I don't even remember, but yes, last month, about how estates and trusts actually is impacted by a divorce or custody and vice versa, and a lot of people don't really think of it like that. And in our family law cases, there's always a tax issue, right? Whether it's through an asset or whether it's through the child exemption or child tax credit or daycare credit, whatever it is, someone wants to talk about it. So these three areas really interplay, which is why I think I've done so well with all three. But like you, I'm like, oh, should I take the tax component out? But I don't want to take it out because if a client has a tax issue in a divorce or in an estate issue or in a state case, I want to make sure that I'm competent enough to, help them out. So speaking of which, what are some of the things that you look for in getting other attorneys to help you in your cases, right? So if you have a partnership issue that has an IP or trademark element to it, or issue rather, how do you choose which attorney is going to help you? Like, do you have a network of people that you know and trust?
Definitely. I have a network of attorneys that are great to work with for most things that have been encountered in the cases that I handle. And I'm always meeting new people, and I love working with new people. And I co-counsel a lot of cases with a lot of attorneys because sometimes it you need to have different attorneys in different fields for that reason. So yeah, I've formed great relationships and become good friends with a lot of people that we worked on cases together. And now it's like 10 years later, and it's wonderful. I think it's a great way to network and meet more people and understand their practice areas. And I wouldn't call myself an extrovert by any means, but I love forming those relationships and staying in contact and working on cases and getting other attorneys' perspectives on things has been invaluable. So.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. I meet new attorneys all the time. I actually met a new attorney the other day. Turns out we have a ton of stuff in common. And we both volunteer and work with the same organization. So I definitely agree with you. It's always nice to have, a number of people that you know and trust, and you can say, okay, this person is going to do this person's going to do that. But it's also nice to meet new people. I've kind of been in my little shell over the years. As a business attorney, as a business owner and attorney, do you find that you get invited or you go to a lot of either CLEs or networking events? Do you find that you take advantage of them?
I go to more organizational events for the boards and things that I'm on and involved in. And yeah, I recently joined the George Mason Inn of Court, and I've met a ton of people through that.
Okay.
And it's basically CLEs that they give every month on ethics and professionalism, and you get to network with judges and practitioners, and that has been a great opportunity. But yeah, absolutely.
It helps. I remember the first time I went to an event, I was what they call a baby attorney. I met Judge Bailey, and she introduced herself. She's I believe she does family and civil here in Baltimore County. And I didn't know who I was talking to, right? I was just being my happy-go-lucky, bubbly self. And she goes, oh, nice to meet you, Marie. My name is Judge Bailey. I was like, oh, okay. It was like I turned into a 3-year-old kid, right? Because judges can be a little intimidating from time to time, but they're such great people. So I try to take advantage of networking opportunities. At least I have lately. But I could talk to you all day, and I know we only have 30 minutes. So if anyone wants to reach you, what is the best phone number that they can utilize?
Our office number is 703-957-2577, and I'll also give you my email.
Hey, you are too quick, because I got to put this at the bottom. 703
957 2577.
Okay.
And my email is mthomas.
Okay.
At thomaslawplc.com.
Well, I'm going to put the website up. That way you don't get a bunch of random things. Sometimes that happens. So that's the website at the bottom. Sometimes you'll get all sorts of lovely spam.
We don't want that.
Yeah, we live in that day and age where someone wants to sell you auto insurance or whatever insurance that you don't need. But Margeaux, thank you so much for joining me today. I truly enjoyed. I never thought I'd enjoy hearing someone talk about, business partnership litigation, right?
It was so nice meeting you, and we will have to stay in touch.
We definitely will. Yeah, we definitely will. And we're too close because you're not far at all. I mean, I'm in northern Maryland, but you're not that far at all. You're about an hour away. So hopefully we get to do this again. I'll talk to you backstage for a couple of minutes. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I am your host, Marie Nadine Jean Baptiste. I will see you next month. Bye.